It was an ordinary Tuesday morning, or at least, that's what everyone thought until Elon Musk made an unexpected announcement that shook the world. The headline screamed, "Elon Musk reveals the 3 foods that will help seniors fight leg cramps and stay active." Sarah Williams, an energetic 67-year-old grandmother from a small town in Michigan, was scrolling through her phone while sipping her morning coffee when the breaking news popped up. She had always been skeptical of celebrity health advice, especially when it came from someone like Musk. The man was known for space travel, electric cars, and his eccentric ideas, but health advice? That seemed out of his wheelhouse. But there was something about the headline that caught her attention. Her legs had been bothering her for months. The leg cramps, those painful, muscle-tightening episodes that jolted her awake in the middle of the night, had become an all-too-frequent part of her life. She had tried everything from stretching before bed to drinking more water, but the cramps kept coming back. The idea of a simple, food-based solution intrigued her. Without thinking twice, she clicked on the link, her fingers tapping on the screen with a sense of curiosity. The live stream had already started, and there he was, Elon Musk, in his usual black t-shirt and relaxed posture, sitting in front of a camera with a mischievous grin on his face. He wasn't talking about rockets or electric cars. Instead, he was talking about something far more personal, and far more urgent for people like Sarah. "I know, this might sound strange coming from me," Musk began, adjusting his glasses slightly, "but after spending some time researching health and wellness, particularly with aging, I've come to realize something. We all know the struggles of leg cramps, especially as we get older. But what if the solution isn't some expensive medication or some high-tech gadget? What if it's something much simpler, something found in the foods we eat every day?" Sarah leaned forward, her coffee cup forgotten. She was skeptical, of course, but there was something about Musk's calm confidence that made her pause. He wasn't just talking about vague, generalized advice, he sounded like someone who had figured something out. "Imagine waking up every morning, free from the pain of leg cramps," Musk continued, his voice lowering with emphasis. "What if the solution is as simple as a few changes to your diet?" The host of the interview, a health and wellness influencer, chimed in. "So, Elon, you're saying the answer isn't in a bottle of pills or some expensive cream, but in our food? That's a pretty big claim." Musk smiled. "Exactly. I've found that there are 3 key foods that can help prevent leg cramps and improve mobility for seniors. And I'm not just talking about the usual stuff you see on wellness blogs. These are foods backed by science, and I've personally seen the results." Sarah's mind raced. What could those 3 foods be? Could they really be the answer to her leg cramps? Before she could think any more about it, Musk went on. "The first food is bananas," he said, holding one up in his hand for emphasis. Bananas are packed with potassium, which is essential for muscle function and can help prevent cramping. They're also rich in magnesium, which plays a key role in keeping your muscles relaxed and preventing cramps. Sarah nodded along, already thinking about the banana smoothies she loved to make in the summer. It seemed so simple, yet so many people overlooked the power of a banana. "The second food," Musk continued, "is sweet potatoes. These starchy vegetables are not only delicious but also packed with potassium and magnesium, just like bananas. But they also provide a steady release of energy, which can help keep your muscles from tightening up." Sarah's curiosity deepened. She'd always been a fan of sweet potatoes, whether roasted or mashed, they were a comforting addition to any meal. But could they really help with her leg cramps? "And the third food," Musk said, leaning in slightly, "is leafy greens, specifically spinach and kale. These greens are loaded with magnesium, potassium, and calcium, all of which are crucial for muscle function. They also help keep your body hydrated, which is key in preventing cramps." Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. 3 foods. That was it? She had expected some elaborate secret, some miraculous cure, but instead, it was a simple, natural approach. She'd always loved leafy greens, especially in salads or smoothies. It seemed too good to be true. Could these 3 foods really make a difference? Musk's voice broke through her thoughts. These three foods, bananas, sweet potatoes, and leafy greens, are all nutrient-dense, and they're easy to incorporate into your daily diet. They help improve circulation, reduce muscle tension, and keep your muscles relaxed. I believe these simple, accessible foods can change the way seniors live, especially when it comes to dealing with common issues like leg cramps. The interview ended shortly after, and Sarah sat in silence, her mind racing with possibilities. Could this really work? Could the key to fighting her painful leg cramps be as simple as changing what she ate? Before she could make up her mind, the host asked one final question, this time directed at the viewers. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? It was a question that resonated with Sarah. For her, the answer had always been simple, her family. They were her motivation, her reason for fighting through the pain and the challenges of getting older. But now, she had another reason to keep moving forward, hope. She glanced at the clock. It was still early in the morning, but she couldn't wait to tell her son Tom about Musk's revelation. Maybe, just maybe, these three foods could be the answer she'd been searching for. As she made her way to the kitchen to make herself a banana smoothie, Sarah felt a sense of excitement stirring in her. She wasn't just fighting leg cramps anymore. She was starting a new chapter, one where she would actively take control of her health and embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. With a renewed sense of purpose, she thought to herself, if Elon Musk can share secrets like this, maybe there's more to this world than rockets and electric cars. Maybe there's a future in food. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Sarah Williams had never imagined that her life would come to this. At 67, she was still the energetic, vibrant woman who loved getting her hands dirty in the garden, going for long walks with her dog Daisy, and chasing her grandchildren around the house. She was always on the go, an active senior who took pride in staying fit and healthy. For as long as she could remember, Sarah had prided herself on being the picture of vitality. In her younger days, she'd been a marathon runner and a yoga enthusiast, her flexible body bending and stretching without the slightest discomfort. As she got older, she found that while some of those activities became harder, her love for walking, gardening, and spending time outdoors never wavered. But over the past year, something had changed. It wasn't dramatic at first, just a slight cramping in her legs here and there after a long day of gardening. She had brushed it off as a result of aging or overexertion. After all, wasn't this what people told you to expect as you got older? But then the cramps started to come more often. They'd hit in the middle of the night, waking her from a deep sleep, her legs seizing up painfully. She'd sit up, massaging her calves until the pain eased, only to lie back down, exhausted, knowing the cramps would return the next night. Soon, the pain wasn't limited to just the nights. It began to affect her during the day. On one particularly rough afternoon, while walking through the park with Daisy, her calf cramped up so intensely that she had to sit down on a bench. The old man sitting next to her asked if she was okay, and she forced a smile, nodding, though inside, she was terrified. This wasn't supposed to happen to her. She was supposed to be out there, active, vibrant, enjoying her life. Yet, here she was, sitting on a park bench, unable to stand without feeling pain. The worst part wasn't the pain itself, it was the feeling of helplessness. Sarah had always prided herself on being self-sufficient. She took care of herself and her home without assistance. But now, she was feeling like a prisoner of her own body. The simple activities that once brought her joy were becoming harder and harder to do. Her son Tom, who lived a few hours away, had noticed the change when he visited last Christmas. He'd always admired his mom's energy, and seeing her struggle with something so simple as climbing the stairs made his heart ache. "Mom, maybe you should see a doctor," he suggested gently one afternoon as they sat together in the kitchen. "This isn't normal. You shouldn't be in pain like this." But Sarah wasn't ready to accept that. "I don't need a doctor," she replied stubbornly. It's just old age catching up with me. I'm fine. Tom wasn't convinced. I think it might be more than that. Maybe you should at least get checked out. There are treatments for this kind of thing, Mom. But Sarah's pride wouldn't allow her to accept help so easily. The idea of relying on pills or doctors felt like admitting defeat. So instead, she kept on pushing through, pretending that everything was fine. She tried to ignore the growing discomfort in her legs and continued on with her daily routine, hoping that it would somehow get better on its own. But deep down, she knew it wouldn't. The cramps were becoming more frequent, more intense. They were affecting her quality of life in ways she hadn't imagined. She found herself canceling plans with friends, turning down invitations for walks, and staying in bed for longer than she ever had before, hoping the pain would go away. That was when she began researching on her own, turning to the internet for answers. She read endless articles about the causes of leg cramps, dehydration, poor circulation, lack of certain vitamins and minerals. She tried drinking more water, cutting back on salt, and adding potassium-rich foods to her diet. While some of it helped, the cramps didn't go away entirely. They would fade for a few days, only to return with a vengeance. But then, one evening, while scrolling through her social media feed, she saw a post that made her stop in her tracks. Elon Musk reveals the 3 foods that will help seniors fight leg cramps and stay active. At first, Sarah thought it was some kind of joke. What did Elon Musk, a man known for building rockets and running a tech empire, know about health and wellness? Still, something about the headline caught her eye. She'd heard his name in passing before, mostly in connection with SpaceX or Tesla, but she had never really paid much attention to his other ventures. But this? This was different. This was personal. She clicked on the link, and within minutes, she was watching Musk's live broadcast. As she listened to him speak about the power of food to prevent leg cramps, something clicked inside her. Musk's message wasn't about expensive supplements or complicated treatments, it was about simple, natural foods that everyone could access. Could this really be the answer Sarah had been searching for? Her mind raced as she processed the information. Potassium, magnesium, and calcium, these were the nutrients that kept muscles functioning properly, preventing the painful cramps she had come to dread. Bananas, sweet potatoes, and leafy greens were all rich in these nutrients, Musk explained, and they could be incorporated into her diet easily. Sarah had eaten all of these foods before, bananas in her morning smoothies, sweet potatoes at dinner, and spinach in her salads. But had she been eating them enough? Had she been consuming them in the right combinations? She immediately made a mental note to start focusing more on these foods. It seemed too simple to be true, but if Musk, someone with a reputation for thinking outside the box, was recommending it, maybe it was worth a shot. As she sat there, taking in every word Musk spoke, Sarah realized that this might just be the opportunity she needed to take control of her health again. Maybe it was time to stop relying on medications or just waiting for things to get better on their own. Maybe, just maybe, the secret to fighting leg cramps, and reclaiming her active lifestyle, was as simple as making a few changes to her diet. With newfound determination, Sarah decided to give it a try. She knew it wouldn't be easy, old habits die hard, but if there was even a chance that these 3 foods could make a difference, she was willing to take that chance. The next day, Sarah went to the grocery store and filled her cart with bananas, sweet potatoes, and a variety of leafy greens. It felt like a small step, but in that moment, it was the first step toward reclaiming her life. As she returned home and began preparing her first meal with these foods, Sarah felt a sense of hope bubbling up inside her. This could be the start of something new, a new chapter where she could fight back against the leg cramps and reclaim the energy she had lost. She wasn't ready to give up on her active lifestyle just yet. Not by a long shot. For the next few days, Sarah took her new diet seriously. Every morning, she blended a banana into her smoothie, added a handful of spinach, and sipped it slowly, savoring the refreshing combination. At lunch, she roasted sweet potatoes with a drizzle of olive oil and herbs, enjoying the warm, satisfying flavor. By dinner, she had mastered the art of incorporating leafy greens, either sautéed or in a salad, into every meal. Sarah felt good, almost hopeful. She wasn't noticing any immediate changes, but she understood that these things took time. After all, Musk himself had said that results wouldn't come overnight. But as the days passed, something started to shift. The cramps were still there. They hadn't worsened, but they hadn't gotten better either. One evening, after a particularly tiring day of gardening, Sarah lay down in bed, expecting to sleep soundly, only for the sharp, unmistakable pain to strike in her calf again. She winced, sitting up, trying to massage the muscle back into a relaxed state. She felt a pang of frustration build inside her. Was this really all there was to it? Was the answer as simple as eating 3 foods, or was there something more she needed to be doing? She gritted her teeth, her fingers pressing into the cramped muscle as she tried to stretch it out. Maybe it wasn't enough, she thought. Maybe I need more potassium or magnesium. Maybe I didn't eat the right amounts. Her mind was flooded with questions. She had hoped that the simple, natural approach would be the key to fixing her problem, but now doubt was creeping in. She glanced at the clock. It was almost 3 a.m., and she hadn't been able to fall back asleep for the past hour. Should I give up? The thought lingered for a moment, but she pushed it aside. Sarah was not the kind of person to give up easily. She had spent her life facing challenges head-on, never backing down from a tough situation. She had raised 2 children on her own, worked multiple jobs to support her family, and always found time to be there for her friends and loved ones. If anyone could make this work, it was her. The next morning, she decided to take matters into her own hands. It wasn't just about eating the foods anymore, it was about understanding the deeper reasons behind the cramps and taking control. Sarah reached for her phone and began doing more research. She learned that leg cramps could also be caused by dehydration, and she realized that she had been slacking on her water intake. It was a small thing, an easy thing to fix, but she hadn't been drinking as much water as she should have, especially with the summer heat creeping in. The thought of sipping water all day long seemed tedious, but if it could make a difference, then it was worth it. On her way to the store that afternoon, she picked up a reusable water bottle, one of those sleek, trendy ones that everyone seemed to have these days. She filled it up and made a promise to herself: no matter how busy the day got, she would drink at least 2 full bottles of water. That could be the missing link. But the more Sarah delved into the subject, the more she realized that there were other factors contributing to her cramps. Poor circulation, a sedentary lifestyle, even her sleep posture, it all played a role. She had never thought about these things before. She had always been active, but with her aging body, it seemed like even the little things mattered more now. Perhaps she had to adjust her habits and lifestyle on a broader scale to get the full benefit. Over the next week, Sarah made some additional changes. She set a reminder on her phone to drink water throughout the day. She made sure to add more magnesium-rich foods to her diet, like almonds and avocados. She took short walks after meals to improve her circulation, and every night before bed, she made sure to stretch her calves and legs, trying to keep the muscles loose. And yet, the cramps persisted. One evening, after another exhausting day of cleaning out the garage, Sarah felt the familiar, excruciating twinge in her calf. This time, she was prepared. She stretched the muscle, massaged it, and even took a hot bath to soothe her aching limbs. But nothing worked. The pain didn't subside as quickly as it usually did. Frustration began to bubble up again, but Sarah was determined not to let it break her resolve. Instead of allowing herself to sink into despair, she made a decision. She needed help. The simple, food-based solution was not enough on its own, and it was time to confront the problem more directly. She reached out to her son Tom, explaining her ongoing struggles. "I think I need to see a doctor, Tom," she said over the phone. "The cramps aren't going away, no matter what I try." Tom's voice was full of concern. "Mom, I think that's a good idea. I'll help you find a specialist. Maybe there's something else going on that you don't know about. As much as Sarah hated to admit it, she knew deep down that seeing a doctor was the right thing to do. But the thought of sitting in a doctor's office, being poked and prodded, didn't sit well with her. She had always been fiercely independent, and the idea of being weak or needy was something she never fully embraced. But perhaps this was just another phase of the process, another step in the right direction. In the meantime, Sarah didn't give up on her commitment to better health. She continued to eat the foods Musk had recommended, drank more water, and took care of her body as best as she could. It was frustrating, yes, but she had learned long ago that anything worth having required patience and persistence. However, little did she know, the journey she was embarking on wasn't just about food, water, or exercise. There was more at play here, something deeper, something beyond what she had considered. But for now, Sarah was focused on the steps she could control, making the best decisions for her body and taking ownership of her health. As Sarah prepared for her doctor's appointment, she began to wonder, could there be something more to her leg cramps than just diet and hydration? Was there an underlying cause she wasn't seeing? And would the answers she sought lead her to a life free of the pain that had begun to define her daily routine? Only time would tell. The morning of Sarah's doctor's appointment arrived with a mixture of anticipation and reluctance. She was not used to seeking help for her health, after all, she had always prided herself on her self-sufficiency. But this time, it was different. The pain in her legs had become a constant reminder of how out of control she felt. She had tried everything she could think of, changing her diet, increasing hydration, even stretching regularly, but nothing seemed to bring lasting relief. As Sarah sat in the doctor's office, she couldn't help but feel a bit apprehensive. The sterile white walls, the smell of antiseptic in the air, and the soft murmur of voices in the hallway made the whole situation feel much more serious than she was comfortable with. She hadn't been to the doctor in years, except for the occasional checkup, so this felt like a big step, one that she wasn't sure she was ready for. Her doctor, Dr. Anderson, was a kind woman in her early 50s, with a calm demeanor that immediately put Sarah at ease. After a few moments of pleasantries, Dr. Anderson asked Sarah to explain her symptoms. "I've been having these awful leg cramps," Sarah began, her voice steady, but tinged with frustration. "They started as just a nuisance after gardening, but now they come all the time, at night, during the day, even when I'm just sitting still. It's getting hard to ignore." Dr. Anderson nodded, taking notes. "How long has this been going on?" "A little over a year," Sarah replied. "I thought it was just part of getting older, but it's gotten so much worse lately." After a few more questions about Sarah's medical history, lifestyle, and diet, Dr. Anderson stood up and motioned for Sarah to lie down on the examination table. She began examining Sarah's legs, checking for signs of swelling or tenderness. When she tested Sarah's range of motion, Sarah winced at the sharp pain that shot up her calf. Dr. Anderson muttered thoughtfully, "It sounds like this could be more than just age-related cramps. It's important that we rule out a few things, like circulation issues or nerve problems. I'm going to order some blood work to check for any deficiencies or underlying conditions that might be contributing." Sarah's heart sank a little. "Do you think it could be something serious?" she asked, her voice quiet, though she tried to keep the fear from creeping in. "Not necessarily," Dr. Anderson reassured her. "Leg cramps are common, especially as we age, but it's always best to take a closer look. We'll figure it out, Sarah. Don't worry." As Sarah sat in the waiting room afterward, her mind swirled with thoughts. Could it really be something serious? She had assumed that her cramps were just another sign of aging. But now, she was beginning to wonder if there was more to the story. What if the food and lifestyle changes she tried weren't enough to fix the problem? What if there was something deeper going on in her body that she hadn't even considered? Her thoughts were interrupted when the nurse called her name, signaling that the blood work was ready. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to calm the nerves bubbling up inside her. This was just the beginning of the journey, she reminded herself. The answers she was seeking were within reach, she just had to trust the process. The following week, Sarah received a call from Dr. Anderson with the results of her blood tests. As Sarah picked up the phone, she couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty that had been hanging over her since her appointment. "Hello, Sarah. This is Dr. Anderson. I've reviewed your blood work, and I've got some answers for you." Her heart skipped a beat. "What did you find, doctor?" "Well, first of all, I want to reassure you that nothing alarming showed up. However, we did find that you're slightly deficient in magnesium and potassium, which could be contributing to your muscle cramps. These deficiencies are not uncommon in seniors, and they could be exacerbated by dehydration or an imbalanced diet." Sarah let out a sigh of relief. She had feared the worst, but this wasn't as bad as she had imagined. Still, she was frustrated. She had been trying to improve her diet, so why hadn't it worked? Dr. Anderson continued, "Magnesium and potassium are both critical for muscle function. You're doing the right thing by adding potassium-rich foods like bananas and sweet potatoes to your diet, but I recommend that you increase your intake of magnesium as well. We can add a supplement if necessary, but I'd like you to start with food sources first. Green leafy vegetables, nuts, seeds, and even a bit of dark chocolate are great sources of magnesium." Sarah was taking mental notes as she listened carefully. "Okay, I can do that. Is there anything else I should be doing?" "Hydration is key," Dr. Anderson replied. "Make sure you're drinking enough water throughout the day, especially since you've been doing a lot of physical activity. If you're not properly hydrated, that can increase the likelihood of cramps." "Got it," Sarah said, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "I'll keep working on that." "There's one more thing I want to check, Sarah," Dr. Anderson added. "You mentioned that the cramps have been worse recently, and it could be that the increased frequency of the cramps is tied to stress or even lack of sleep. How are you sleeping these days?" Sarah's stomach tightened at the mention of sleep. "Honestly, not great," she admitted. "The cramps wake me up several times a week, and it's hard to get back to sleep. I'm exhausted." "Sleep and stress both play significant roles in muscle health," Dr. Anderson said sympathetically. "I recommend trying relaxation techniques before bed, like light stretching or meditation. It might help to relax your muscles and ease some of the stress that could be contributing to the problem." As Sarah hung up the phone, she felt a mix of emotions: relief, frustration, and even a sense of empowerment. The solution wasn't as simple as she had hoped, but it wasn't insurmountable. She had a clear course of action now: adjust her diet, hydrate more effectively, and focus on improving her sleep and managing stress. As she left the doctor's office that day, Sarah knew this was just the beginning of a longer journey. She still had challenges ahead, but now she had the tools and the knowledge to face them. The cramps hadn't defeated her yet, and they weren't going to. Sarah was ready to continue her fight, and she wasn't going to give up on her active lifestyle so easily. Sarah stood in the kitchen, staring at the glass of water in her hand. It was just plain water, no added electrolytes, no flavor enhancers, nothing but simple hydration. But to her, it represented something much bigger. She had been fighting this battle with leg cramps for so long, had tried countless remedies, and had hoped for answers from the very beginning. And now, after the doctor's visit and the changes she'd begun to make, she finally felt like she was taking the right steps. But deep down, she wasn't sure it was enough. Her mind kept circling back to one thing: was this really the answer? Could these simple changes really be enough to end the pain? Over the past week, Sarah had taken the advice Dr. Anderson had given her to heart. She had started eating more magnesium-rich foods like leafy greens, almonds, and dark chocolate. She had increased her water intake significantly, always keeping her new water bottle nearby. But the real challenge was the stress management and sleep. How could she truly relax when her mind was racing with the pressures of her life? The constant worry about her health, her children, and her growing list of responsibilities, it all seemed to pile up. That evening, as Sarah tried to get some sleep, the familiar, sharp pain in her calf suddenly gripped her, sending a jolt of frustration through her body. She gasped, sitting up in bed, her hands instinctively massaging the muscle in an effort to ease the cramp. Why isn't this working? The tears that had been welling up in her eyes now freely fell down her cheeks. It wasn't just the pain in her legs, it was the overwhelming sense of helplessness. She felt like she had been doing everything right, and yet, she was still stuck in the same cycle of suffering. The cramps had robbed her of her peace, and now they were taking away her sleep too. What was the point of trying so hard when it felt like nothing was changing? For a brief moment, Sarah considered giving up. Maybe it was all out of her hands. Maybe the cramps were just something she would have to live with. Maybe she had done everything she could, and it still wasn't enough. But then she remembered something. She remembered the feeling she had when she first learned about Elon Musk's 3 foods for leg cramps. It sparked something in her, a feeling that she could fight back, that there was something within her power that could make a difference. The idea of taking control of her health had given her a glimmer of hope. And maybe, just maybe, that hope was what she needed to keep going. Taking a deep breath, Sarah wiped her eyes and picked up her phone. It was late, but she didn't care. She tapped on the screen and called her son, Tom. "Hey, Mom," Tom answered after a couple of rings. "Everything okay?" "No, not really," Sarah replied, her voice shaky. "I'm still dealing with these cramps. They're worse than ever tonight, and I feel like I've tried everything." Tom's voice was calm and steady. "Mom, I know it's frustrating. But you've made so much progress already. You've been changing your diet, drinking more water, and focusing on your health. I think you're doing all the right things. Have you been able to relax before bed? Maybe you're still holding on to some stress." Sarah sat down on the edge of her bed, feeling a sense of relief at hearing her son's voice. He always knew what to say to help her through tough times. "I don't know, Tom. It's hard to relax when everything feels like it's piling up on me. I'm worried about the cramps, and I feel like I'm not getting any better." "You are getting better, Mom. It just takes time. You've made a big step by taking care of yourself, and now you need to take the next one, trusting that it will all come together. Maybe you need to give yourself a break. Let yourself be proud of what you're doing. That's important, too." Sarah closed her eyes, the tears subsiding as she listened to Tom's words. It was true. She had been pushing herself so hard to find a quick fix that she hadn't paused to appreciate the progress she had made. She was taking control of her health, making conscious decisions to improve her lifestyle, and facing each day with determination. The cramps were still there, but she wasn't going to let them define her. This journey wasn't just about finding a solution for her leg cramps, it was about reclaiming her sense of self, her strength, and her resilience. She had done it before, and she would do it again. "You're right, Tom," she said softly. "I need to give myself some grace. Thank you for reminding me of that." "Anytime, Mom," Tom replied. "You've got this. Just keep moving forward, one step at a time." As Sarah hung up the phone, she felt a renewed sense of resolve. She had been focused on the wrong thing, on the immediate fix, the quick result. But the real victory lay in the journey itself. The journey toward healing, toward taking care of herself, and toward accepting that the process could take time. She smiled as she put her phone down. It wasn't the pain in her legs that defined her, it was her determination, her ability to keep going no matter what. The cramps might still come, but they would no longer have control over her. She would rise above them, one step at a time. For the first time in a long time, Sarah felt at peace. She didn't have all the answers yet, but she was finally ready to embrace the journey. And that was enough for now. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah found herself on a new path, one that was no longer solely focused on the constant battle against leg cramps, but rather on a holistic approach to better health. It wasn't a quick fix, but it was something far more meaningful, a long-term commitment to self-care, understanding, and growth. The cramps didn't disappear overnight, but they had lessened in intensity. They came less frequently, and when they did strike, Sarah was more prepared, more resilient, and more able to handle them. The changes she had made, eating magnesium-rich foods, drinking more water, taking walks, and getting better sleep, were beginning to pay off. It wasn't just the physical relief that made the difference, though. What really changed was Sarah's mindset. She had spent so many years feeling trapped by her circumstances, always looking for an immediate answer, a quick way out of her struggles. But the process of healing, both for her body and her mind, was slower, more methodical, and ultimately more empowering. As Sarah sat in her kitchen one bright, sunny morning, sipping a cup of herbal tea, she reflected on how far she had come. She had been so consumed by her cramps, so focused on the pain, that she had neglected the bigger picture. It wasn't just about getting rid of the cramps, it was about learning to take care of herself in a way that was sustainable and nurturing. Her relationship with food had changed. Instead of seeing it as a source of comfort during difficult times, she had begun to view food as fuel for her body. She found joy in nourishing herself with the right nutrients, and for the first time in years, she felt proud of the meals she was preparing. Sarah even found herself experimenting with new recipes, trying different ways to incorporate healthy foods into her diet. Sweet potatoes, leafy greens, bananas, they were no longer just ingredients, they were a testament to her commitment to healing. Her sleep had improved as well. While the cramps still sometimes interrupted her rest, she had learned techniques to manage the pain and relax her body before bed. A warm bath, gentle stretches, and a few minutes of deep breathing made all the difference. Her mind was calmer, less anxious. The stress she had been carrying for so long seemed to melt away as she embraced a healthier lifestyle and a more balanced routine. The changes didn't just affect her health. Her relationship with her children had improved too. Tom had been her rock through the entire process, offering support and encouragement when she needed it most. Their conversations, once centered around her problems and frustrations, now included more joy, more laughter, and more appreciation for the little things in life. One evening, after dinner, Tom came over to visit, and they sat together on the porch, enjoying the cool breeze as the sun began to set. Sarah couldn't help but smile at how peaceful things felt. "You look good, Mom," Tom remarked as they chatted. "It's amazing to see how much better you're doing." Sarah chuckled, feeling a sense of pride. "I've been working hard, but it's not just about the cramps anymore. I've learned to slow down and take care of myself. And honestly, it's made all the difference." Tom nodded, his eyes soft with affection. "You've always been strong, Mom. But I think it's really powerful that you're learning to take care of yourself like this. I'm really proud of you." Sarah's heart swelled with gratitude. She had spent so many years putting others first, always making sure her family and friends were okay. But for the first time in a long time, she realized that it was okay to put herself first, too. She didn't have to be everything for everyone. She was allowed to take a break, to focus on her own well-being, and to invest in herself. As the evening grew darker, Sarah and Tom shared stories from the past, laughing and reminiscing about old memories. The cramps were still there, yes, but they no longer controlled her life. She had gained something far more valuable than just relief from pain. She had found a new sense of self-worth and the courage to embrace the changes that had been waiting for her all along. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, the familiar tension in her calf began to tighten. But this time, she didn't panic. She knew exactly what to do. She gently stretched her leg, massaged the muscle, and took a few deep breaths. The cramp subsided more quickly than usual. It wasn't gone entirely, but she felt a quiet sense of triumph. She had learned to manage the pain, and more importantly, she had learned to manage her life. Before she drifted off to sleep, Sarah reflected on the journey she had been on. She had started out feeling helpless, frustrated, and desperate for a quick fix. But now, she understood that true healing wasn't about finding an instant solution, it was about embracing the process, trusting in the steps, and allowing herself the time and space to grow. Her health journey wasn't just about leg cramps, it was about reclaiming her life, her energy, and her sense of well-being. It was about learning to listen to her body, to trust in her own strength, and to understand that she was worthy of taking care of herself. The cramps, the struggles, and the pain were just part of the story, part of the journey that had led her to this point. And now, with a clearer mind and a stronger spirit, Sarah was ready for whatever came next. She had fought for herself, and she had won. The victory wasn't in the absence of pain, it was in the courage to keep going, to keep trying, and to keep believing that things could get better. As she drifted into a peaceful sleep, Sarah knew one thing for sure: she was stronger than she had ever been before. Sarah's journey to better health had been a personal one, but it wasn't long before she realized that her transformation was starting to affect those around her. At first, it had been a quiet struggle. She didn't want to burden anyone with her pain, nor did she expect anyone to fully understand her frustrations. But as she began to heal, she found herself sharing more of her story with her friends and family. One afternoon, while visiting her friend Clara for coffee, Sarah was surprised by how quickly the conversation shifted from casual chat to health and wellness. Clara had always been the one to offer her advice on healthy living, but today, it was Sarah who found herself offering advice in return. "Clara," Sarah began, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly, "you know, I've been dealing with leg cramps for so long, and nothing seemed to help. But I finally found a solution that's making a difference." Clara's eyes widened. "Oh. Do tell." "I've been dealing with cramps myself. You know, those painful ones that wake me up in the middle of the night. I thought it was just part of getting older." "It's not just that," Sarah said, leaning forward. "I learned that magnesium and potassium deficiencies can be major contributors to cramps. And not just that, but proper hydration, relaxation, and sleep are also huge factors. I've been trying to eat more magnesium-rich foods, like spinach and almonds, and I've been drinking more water. I feel so much better already." Clara raised an eyebrow. "I had no idea magnesium played such a big role. I've been drinking more water lately, but maybe I should look at my diet more carefully." "Exactly," Sarah said, feeling a burst of excitement as she spoke. "Sometimes it's easy to overlook the basics, but if we give our bodies what they need, they'll thank us for it. The change isn't overnight, but I'm starting to feel a lot more energy, and the cramps don't bother me as much." Clara smiled, clearly intrigued. "I'm definitely going to try that. If it helps even half as much as you're saying, I'd be so grateful. Thanks for sharing this with me, Sarah." As Sarah drove home that day, she couldn't help but think about the ripple effect her journey was having. She hadn't set out to become some sort of wellness guru, but in sharing her experience, she was unknowingly inspiring others to take control of their health, too. It was an unexpected but fulfilling part of her journey, the realization that the more she took care of herself, the more she was able to empower others. The next few weeks saw a number of small conversations like this one. Whether it was with her daughter, her neighbor, or an old colleague, people were beginning to take notice of the changes Sarah had made and were curious about the things she had done differently. It wasn't just about the physical benefits, it was the hope, the renewed energy, and the sense of strength that Sarah now radiated. One evening, during a family dinner, Sarah's daughter Lisa asked her about the changes she had made. The conversation had turned to health, as it often did at family gatherings, and Sarah found herself talking about the foods she had incorporated into her diet, her focus on hydration, and the importance of sleep. "You've been so much more energetic lately, Mom," Lisa said, her voice full of admiration. "I've noticed it. You seem so much more at peace with everything. What's your secret?" Sarah smiled warmly, grateful for the compliment. "It's not one thing, sweetheart. It's a combination of everything: eating the right foods, drinking more water, focusing on getting enough sleep, and managing my stress. It's a lot of small changes that add up over time." Lisa's eyes widened as she absorbed her mother's words. "I've been so stressed with school and work, and I definitely haven't been taking care of myself. Maybe I should try some of that, too." "I think you should," Sarah said with a soft laugh. It's easy to forget to take care of ourselves when life gets busy, but we have to make the time. It's like when you fly on an airplane and they tell you to put on your own oxygen mask first. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. Lisa nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense. Maybe I should start doing some of those things, like the stretching and relaxation techniques you've been doing. It's not easy at first, but it gets easier, Sarah said. And it's worth it. As Sarah shared more of her story, she realized that the journey she had been on wasn't just about her own personal healing. It was about creating a ripple effect that touched the lives of others, encouraging them to take action and prioritize their health, too. She had learned how to trust her body and care for it in a way that allowed her to live fully. And now, by sharing what she had learned, she was passing that wisdom on to others. The next morning, Sarah woke up to an unexpected message from Clara. It was a simple text, but it filled Sarah with a deep sense of satisfaction. Just wanted to let you know, I started adding more magnesium-rich foods to my diet, and I've been sleeping better already. Thanks again for the tip. It's making a difference. Sarah smiled and typed a quick reply, I'm so glad to hear that. Keep me posted on how it's going. You're on the right track. As the weeks continued, more and more people reached out to Sarah, thanking her for sharing her journey and the information that had helped her. It felt like a circle of support and empowerment was forming, and Sarah was proud to be at the center of it. Her leg cramps were still a part of her life, but they no longer defined her. She had learned to live with them, to manage them, and to take care of herself in a way that allowed her to thrive. She had found strength in vulnerability, and in doing so, she had helped others find their own strength. And in the quiet moments, as she sat on the porch or walked through the park, Sarah realized something important. Her journey had not only healed her body, it had healed her spirit. She was no longer running from the pain, hoping for an easy fix. She was embracing the process, trusting in the path, and knowing that, with each step she took, she was moving closer to the life she had always wanted. It wasn't a perfect life, but it was hers, and that was more than enough. Sarah's life had changed in ways she never expected. Every morning, she woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. The early morning light streamed through her bedroom window, warming her skin as she slowly opened her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't waking up with a sense of dread or frustration over the day ahead. She felt peaceful, grateful, even energized. Yet, despite the positive shifts in her health, there was still something lurking in the back of her mind, something she couldn't quite shake off. While her physical health was improving, Sarah found herself contemplating deeper questions about her life, about who she was and what she truly wanted moving forward. Her son Tom had noticed it too. One Saturday afternoon, as Sarah was putting the finishing touches on a hearty salad in the kitchen, Tom came over to visit. "Mom, you okay?" he asked, leaning against the kitchen doorway, a concerned look on his face. "You've been a little quiet lately." Sarah paused, her hands resting on the counter as she looked at her son. She had always been able to talk to Tom about anything, but today, she wasn't sure where to begin. "I'm not sure," she said after a beat. "I feel better physically, but there's something inside me that doesn't feel settled. Like I'm missing something. I've been so focused on the cramps and my health, I didn't realize how much of me I've been ignoring." Tom frowned. "What do you mean?" "You're doing great, Mom. You've come so far." "I know," Sarah replied, her voice soft. "I've been focusing on what's in front of me, the leg cramps, the diet changes, and my routine. And it's all been helping. But I can't help feeling like there's more to life than just this. I've been playing it safe for so long. What about the dreams I've put on hold? What about the things I've always wanted to do but never had the courage to pursue?" Tom looked at his mom, his expression thoughtful. "I get it. You've been through so much already, and now that you've gotten past some of the physical stuff, you're ready for more. But what's holding you back?" Sarah didn't answer right away. She didn't know exactly what was holding her back, but she realized that for years, she had lived in a cycle of self-doubt. The idea of stepping outside her comfort zone, of taking risks, felt foreign. She had spent decades putting others' needs first, and now, she was left wondering if it was too late to focus on her own passions. "I guess I'm scared," she admitted quietly, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "Scared of failing. Scared of trying something new and it not working out. What if I make a mistake?" Tom smiled softly, walking over to give her a reassuring hug. "Mom, you've already been through so much. You're stronger than you realize. And the thing is, no one is perfect. But you won't know until you try. You've got to take that leap, even if it's scary. You've always been so brave for us, and I think it's time to do something for yourself." His words resonated with Sarah. Maybe it was time. Maybe it was time to start that art class she'd always dreamed of, or take that trip to Italy she'd been saving for. Maybe it was time to push through the doubts and give herself permission to live the life she truly wanted. Later that evening, Sarah sat alone on her porch, reflecting on Tom's words. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, the calm air brushing against her skin. She had always lived her life by the rules, following the expected path, doing what others wanted her to do. But what if there was more to life than just that? What if, at 58, she could still chase her passions, step out of her comfort zone, and experience a life she had always imagined? A sudden rush of excitement flooded through her as she imagined the possibilities. Traveling, learning new skills, discovering parts of herself that had been dormant for years. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, Sarah felt a spark of hope. That night, as she prepared for bed, she made a decision. She would no longer let fear hold her back. She had already come so far, taking control of her health, reclaiming her sense of well-being, and now, it was time to take control of her future. Tomorrow, she would sign up for that art class. The one she had been eyeing for months but had always put off. It was time to take that first step toward her own happiness. As she closed her eyes, a sense of peace washed over her. No longer would she hide behind the excuses of age or fear. She was done waiting for permission to live the life she truly wanted. The next morning, Sarah woke up with a sense of determination. She reached for her phone, went online, and signed up for the art class. It was a small step, but it felt like the beginning of something bigger. Her heart raced with excitement as she thought about the possibilities, expressing herself through art, exploring new creative outlets, and meeting new people. As Sarah stepped into the next phase of her life, she realized that healing wasn't just about physical health. It was about nurturing the mind, spirit, and soul. It was about pushing past the barriers of fear and self-doubt and allowing herself to dream again. And as she looked ahead, Sarah knew that this was just the beginning of her new journey, one full of self-discovery, joy, and the freedom to live fully. Sarah had always admired art from afar. Her house was filled with paintings, many bought from local galleries, some passed down from family members, and she had always been captivated by the way a painting could evoke such deep emotions with just a few strokes of the brush. But Sarah had never been bold enough to pick up a paintbrush herself. She had convinced herself for years that she wasn't an artist, that it was too late to learn, that others had far more talent. But now, sitting at the kitchen table that morning, sipping her coffee, she knew it was time to change that narrative. She had signed up for the art class the night before, and though the excitement of doing something new coursed through her, so did a rush of nerves. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she made a fool of herself? What if she failed? Yet, deep down, she knew that the fear of failing was far less painful than the regret of never trying. So, she pushed those fears aside and focused on the excitement, the thrill of diving into something new, the joy of creating something with her own hands, something that was uniquely hers. As the day of the first class approached, Sarah found herself surprisingly eager. It had been years since she had felt this kind of anticipation, the kind that comes with starting something fresh. She pulled out her old sketchbook from the back of the closet, a relic from her teenage years when she had once dreamt of becoming an artist but had tucked that dream away in favor of practicality. The pages were yellowing with age, filled with half-finished drawings and scribbled ideas. She opened to a random page and stared at the sketch of a tree she had drawn when she was 16. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but there was something about it that made her smile. It was an honest attempt, a moment where she had dared to express herself. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of connection to that younger version of herself. That girl had dreamed big, believed in herself, and hadn't been afraid to try. That evening, Sarah carefully prepared for the class. She put on comfortable clothes, gathered her supplies, paints, brushes, and canvases, and double-checked the address. Her nerves were still there, a soft buzz at the back of her mind, but there was something more powerful rising within her: excitement, determination, and curiosity. The art studio was cozy, tucked away on a quiet street near downtown. It had a rustic charm with warm lighting and exposed brick walls. As Sarah walked in, she felt a rush of warmth and familiarity. The air smelled faintly of paint, wood, and creativity. A handful of people were already seated at easels, setting up their supplies and chatting quietly among themselves. It was a small group, only 8 people, and most seemed to be in their 30s and 40s, but there was a warmth to the atmosphere that made Sarah feel at ease. A woman in her mid-40s with short, curly hair and a friendly smile walked up to Sarah. "You must be Sarah." "I'm Lisa, the instructor." "Welcome," she said, extending her hand. Sarah shook it, offering a nervous smile. "Thank you. I'm really excited, but a little nervous, too." Lisa's smile widened. "I completely understand. It's common to feel that way, especially when you're trying something new. But I promise you, this class is all about having fun, experimenting, and not worrying about being perfect. Everyone here is in a different place with their art, and that's the beauty of it. We're all learning together." Sarah nodded, feeling a little more relaxed. She glanced around the room at the other students, who were setting up their canvases and supplies, some chatting, others lost in their own thoughts. No one looked like a professional, and Sarah realized that the pressure she had placed on herself, this notion that she had to be great from the start, was unnecessary. Here, it was okay to be a beginner. "All right, let's get started," Lisa called, clapping her hands together. "We're going to start with a basic landscape painting today. Just a simple scene, a sky, some trees, and a field. Don't worry about making it perfect. The goal is to express yourself and enjoy the process." Sarah picked up her brush, dipped it into the paint, and took a deep breath. Her hand trembled slightly as she began to apply the first strokes of paint to the canvas. The colors seemed to flow naturally, blues for the sky, greens for the trees. She didn't think about the technique too much. She just let the paintbrush guide her, feeling the joy of creation in every movement. As the class progressed, Sarah found herself getting lost in the work, the anxiety slipping away with every brushstroke. She wasn't thinking about the cramps or the worries that had once consumed her. For that moment, it was just her and the canvas, nothing else mattered. The world outside the studio disappeared, and Sarah was reminded of a feeling she hadn't experienced in years, the pure joy of creating something just for herself. At the end of the class, Lisa walked around to each student, offering feedback and encouragement. When she reached Sarah's canvas, she paused, her eyes lighting up with approval. "This is really lovely," Lisa said. "I can see you have a natural eye for color and composition. How does it feel to be back at the canvas?" Sarah beamed, her heart swelling with pride. "It feels amazing. I can't believe I waited so long to do this." Lisa smiled. "You should never stop creating. Art is a lifelong journey, and there's always something new to discover. I'm glad you took the leap." As Sarah packed up her supplies and left the studio that night, she felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't felt in a long time. She had taken a risk, a small one, but a significant one, and it had paid off. The painting wasn't perfect, but that wasn't the point. What mattered was that she had stepped out of her comfort zone and allowed herself to create, to express herself. The next morning, she woke up with a new sense of clarity. She wasn't just healing physically, she was also rediscovering parts of herself that had been buried for years. The art class was just the beginning. There were so many more possibilities ahead, so many dreams waiting to be pursued. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt truly alive. As Sarah drove home from her art class, the sky was beginning to fade into hues of pink and purple. The world seemed to slow down, the quiet hum of the car engine mingling with the music softly playing on the radio. The whole experience felt surreal. In one evening, Sarah had unlocked something inside her that had been dormant for decades: her love for art, her courage to start something new, and her willingness to push past fear. She was proud of herself. Proud that she had taken the first step. But she was also aware of something else, an unsettling truth that she could no longer ignore. While she felt good about the art class, there was still a part of her that felt the need to take her journey of self-discovery even further. What if, just like her health journey, she could tackle this next phase with the same sense of intention and perseverance? What if she could dive deeper into herself, uncover even more passions, and build a life that was truly her own? Her thoughts were interrupted when her phone buzzed. It was a text from Tom. "Hey, Mom, how was class? Hope you had fun." Sarah smiled as she typed her reply. "It was amazing, Tom. I actually feel like I'm really starting something for myself. I can't believe I've waited this long." A few seconds later, Tom replied with an encouraging message. "That's awesome. You deserve this. I'm so proud of you." A warmth spread through Sarah as she read the text. Her son's words meant the world to her. Over the past few months, she had learned to embrace the small victories, whether it was overcoming leg cramps or taking a chance on her art. But now, it felt like her journey was just beginning. She was no longer just recovering from the past, she was actively creating the future she wanted. When Sarah arrived home, she placed her art supplies down on the kitchen table and took a deep breath. She thought back to the moment when she had decided to sign up for the class. That decision had been a turning point, and now she was at another crossroads. She knew she had to keep moving forward, but where exactly would she go? There was a shift in her mindset. Instead of questioning whether she was good enough or if it was too late, she began to focus on the potential for growth, the opportunity to learn more and explore new avenues. This was her chance to build something entirely her own, a life full of creativity, excitement, and possibilities. Sarah sat down at the kitchen table, her mind racing with ideas. She thought about the things she had always wanted to do but had never made time for: learning to play the piano, traveling to new places, writing a book. She realized that now, at 58, she had the chance to chase those dreams, to push past the limits she had set for herself. But with this realization came the understanding that embracing new challenges also meant facing her fears. It meant stepping outside her comfort zone, just as she had done with the art class. And it meant being okay with failure, understanding that it was a part of the process. The next day, Sarah found herself reflecting on her next step. She made a list, a simple one, of all the things she had always wanted to do. 1. Learn to play the piano. 2. Take a solo trip to Italy. 3. Write a memoir or collection of short stories. 4. Start a blog about her health and wellness journey. 5. Learn how to garden. Each of these items on the list represented a dream that had been tucked away, like old photographs in a dusty box. But now, Sarah was determined to take action. She knew that life was short, and if she didn't start now, she might never get around to it. The first step was clear: the piano. Sarah had always loved the sound of the piano, especially the gentle, soothing melodies that seemed to fill a room with emotion. She had dreamed of learning to play for years, but like many things, it had always been pushed to the back burner. But now, she was ready to commit to it. She spent the next hour researching local piano teachers and found one that seemed like a perfect fit, someone who specialized in adult beginners. Without hesitating, she called and booked her first lesson for the following week. But it wasn't just the piano. As she sat down with her cup of tea later that evening, Sarah thought about Italy. She had always wanted to visit the art museums in Florence, to walk along the canals in Venice, to taste authentic pasta in Rome. She had spent so many years waiting for the right time to go, but now, she realized there would never be a perfect time. The perfect time was when she made it happen. So, she did the next logical thing, she booked her plane ticket. She chose a date 6 months out, just enough time to plan and save, but close enough that she would have no excuse to delay. The excitement that rushed through her as she completed the transaction was indescribable. She was doing it. She was making her dreams a reality. In the days that followed, Sarah continued to take small but significant steps toward creating the life she wanted. She picked up a notebook and began jotting down ideas for her memoir, stories about her life, her challenges, and her triumphs. She started reading books on gardening and planned to start a small vegetable garden in her backyard. And while doing all this, she realized how much joy she was finding in each step, each decision. She wasn't just chasing her dreams, she was living them. And then, one evening, Sarah found herself standing in front of the mirror, taking a long, hard look at the woman staring back at her. The woman who had lived through pain, disappointment, and self-doubt. The woman who had spent too many years worrying about what others thought, too many years playing it safe. But that woman was gone now. In her place stood someone new, someone confident, someone daring, someone unafraid to pursue what made her happy. The journey ahead wasn't going to be easy. There would be bumps along the road. But Sarah had learned something invaluable: life wasn't about avoiding the challenges, it was about embracing them. And the most important challenge of all: to believe that she deserved to live the life she wanted, no matter her age or the obstacles that lay ahead. And with that thought, she took a deep breath, smiled, and turned the page to the next chapter of her life. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? It had been a month since Sarah had started her art class, and in that time, she had learned much more than just painting. She had learned that the most important skill wasn't in mastering technique, but in conquering the fears that had held her back for so long. Every time she stood in front of her canvas, she fought a battle against self-doubt. But with each brushstroke, she became more comfortable with the idea of making mistakes, embracing imperfections, and allowing herself to be vulnerable. Yet, despite the progress she had made, Sarah still felt the nagging presence of one looming fear, the fear of failure. It wasn't just about the art class anymore, it had seeped into every part of her life. What if she wasn't good enough? What if the piano lessons didn't work out, or what if her trip to Italy ended up being a disappointment? What if the blog she had been thinking about starting failed to gain any followers? The what-ifs seemed endless. One quiet evening, as she sat in her living room and flipped through the pages of a gardening book she had recently bought, Sarah's phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from Tom. "Mom, I've been thinking about our conversation the other day. I know you're starting to make big changes in your life, and I just wanted to remind you that you don't have to have it all figured out. You've already come so far, and you're doing great." Sarah smiled at the text, her heart swelling with gratitude. Tom always knew the right thing to say when she was feeling uncertain. But even with his encouragement, Sarah couldn't shake the underlying worry. Was she truly ready for this new chapter in her life? Was she doing the right thing? That night, as she lay in bed, the thoughts kept circling in her mind. Was it enough to take action, to push herself to try new things? Or did she need to confront the deeper, more uncomfortable emotions of fear and insecurity that were still holding her back? The following morning, Sarah decided to do something she had never done before. She called her friend, Julia. Julia was someone she had known for years, an old friend from her yoga class. Over the years, they had often shared conversations about their hopes, dreams, and the difficulties they faced in life. But Sarah had always felt like she was the one who needed to be strong for everyone else. This time, though, she needed someone to listen to her doubts and fears. "Hey, Julia. Can we talk? I'm feeling a little overwhelmed," Sarah said, her voice shaking slightly. "Of course, what's going on?" Julia replied warmly. I don't know. I'm doing all these things, starting the art class, planning my trip to Italy, signing up for piano lessons, but it feels like I'm constantly battling my own doubts. What if none of it works out? What if I'm just not good enough? Sarah's voice cracked slightly, the weight of her emotions finally spilling out. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Julia spoke, her voice calm and reassuring. "Sarah, you've been through so much. You've changed your life in so many positive ways already. And you're doing this for you, not for anyone else. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to have doubts. But you don't have to let them control you. You have everything it takes to succeed. Not because you're perfect, but because you have the courage to try." Sarah sat in silence, letting Julia's words sink in. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to be vulnerable, to acknowledge that it was okay to feel uncertain. Julia's voice was like a balm to her anxieties, helping her realize that the fear was just a part of the journey, not the end of it. "I think you're right," Sarah finally said, her voice steadier. "I've been holding myself back, thinking that I need to have everything figured out, that I need to be perfect. But maybe the real strength lies in just taking the next step, even if I'm not sure of the outcome." "Exactly," Julia agreed. "Life isn't about having it all figured out. It's about being brave enough to show up, even when you don't know what's next." With that conversation, Sarah felt a shift. The fear wasn't gone, but it no longer had the power to paralyze her. She realized that every step she had taken, from signing up for the art class to booking her plane ticket to Italy, had been an act of courage. She had already proven to herself that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. The next day, Sarah woke up with a renewed sense of clarity. It wasn't about avoiding fear, it was about learning how to live with it, to move forward in spite of it. She was no longer going to wait for the perfect moment, the perfect situation, or the perfect outcome. The moment was now. At her piano lesson that afternoon, Sarah was a little nervous. But as her teacher, a kind woman named Carol, guided her through the first few notes, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. The notes were clumsy at first, and her fingers stumbled over the keys, but it didn't matter. She was there. She was doing it. Later that evening, as she sat down at her desk to write her first blog post, Sarah realized that the perfectionism she had once clung to wasn't necessary. She didn't need to have everything polished or perfect. She only needed to show up. To put her thoughts out into the world. To take the next step. As she typed, her fingers moving with a newfound confidence, she thought about how far she had come in such a short amount of time. From a woman who had once been consumed by self-doubt and fear of failure, she had transformed into someone who was willing to face her fears head-on. It wasn't always easy, and there were days when the doubt still crept in, but Sarah now understood that the key to growth wasn't in avoiding fear, it was in embracing it, learning from it, and continuing to move forward. That night, before going to bed, Sarah wrote one last note in her journal. It read, "Fear is a part of the journey. But it's not the end of the story." As she closed the journal, Sarah smiled to herself. Tomorrow, she would take another step. And the next day, she would take another. Slowly but surely, she was becoming the woman she had always wanted to be, not perfect, but real, courageous, and always moving forward. The days seemed to blur together as Sarah continued to follow the path she had set for herself. Every morning, she would wake up with a sense of purpose, excited to face whatever new challenge or task awaited her. The doubts that had once held her back no longer felt as overwhelming. She had learned that progress didn't happen in leaps and bounds, it happened in small, steady steps, and each of those steps mattered. One evening, while sitting at the kitchen table with her cup of tea, Sarah thought back to the early days of her transformation. She remembered how unsure she had felt, how every new experience, whether it was starting her art class, booking her trip to Italy, or learning to play the piano, had come with a whirlwind of fear. She had wanted to back out more times than she could count, but something inside her had pushed her forward. Something inside her had kept saying, "You can do this." It was that inner voice, that quiet but persistent voice, that had become her greatest ally. For years, Sarah had ignored it, choosing instead to listen to the louder voices of doubt and insecurity. But now, that inner voice was the one she trusted. It was the one that kept her grounded, reminding her that she was capable of far more than she had ever imagined. Sarah had learned a lot about herself over the past few months. One of the most powerful lessons had been about self-belief. She had always been the type of person to put others first, to prioritize the needs of her family, her friends, even her colleagues. But in doing so, she had lost sight of her own needs, her own desires. She had placed her dreams on hold for so long, believing that it was selfish to pursue them. But now, she knew better. It wasn't selfish to want something for herself. It was essential. She had spent years caring for others, now it was time to care for herself. And the most important way to do that was by believing in her own worth and her own abilities. That belief was starting to manifest in every part of her life. Her art class was going better than she had expected. She wasn't yet a master painter, but that wasn't the point. The point was that she was enjoying the process, feeling the rush of creativity that came with each new project. And more importantly, she was proud of herself for showing up. Her piano lessons were coming along as well. She still made mistakes, but that was okay. It didn't matter if she couldn't play a Mozart sonata just yet. What mattered was that she was learning, that she was challenging herself in ways she had never done before. Every time her fingers stumbled on the keys, she reminded herself that it was all part of the process. No one learned anything without making mistakes. Then there was the blog. Sarah had started writing posts about her health journey, her challenges with leg cramps, and the foods that helped her stay active. At first, she had been terrified of putting herself out there, worried that no one would care about what she had to say. But to her surprise, people were reading her posts. They were commenting, sharing their own stories, and thanking her for her insights. It felt good to be making a difference, no matter how small. She wasn't just writing about her own experiences anymore, she was connecting with others, offering them advice and encouragement, just as she had been encouraged. And that, she realized, was what mattered most. She wasn't doing it for the likes or the comments. She was doing it because it felt right, because it helped others, and because it helped her grow. As she sat there reflecting on her progress, Sarah's phone buzzed. It was a message from her friend Julia, who had become one of her biggest supporters throughout this journey. "Hey, Sarah. I'm so proud of you for everything you're doing. I know you've been working on your blog and it's really taking off. You're making such an impact." Sarah smiled at the message. Julia's support had meant the world to her. She had always admired Julia's confidence and fearlessness, but now, Sarah was starting to see a reflection of that confidence in herself. It was as if all the pieces were falling into place. In the days that followed, Sarah took another step in her journey. She decided to take her passion for health and wellness to the next level. She started researching certifications for health coaching, exploring how she could help others who were dealing with the same struggles she had faced, whether it was battling leg cramps, managing stress, or simply finding the motivation to stay active. The more she learned about health coaching, the more excited she became. It felt like a natural next step in her journey, one that would allow her to share what she had learned with others in a more structured way. She had already made a significant impact with her blog, but health coaching would enable her to dive deeper, to truly connect with people on a personal level and help them make lasting changes in their lives. One evening, after a long day of researching coaching programs, Sarah found herself standing in front of the mirror once more. This time, there was no self-doubt. There were no questions about whether she was good enough or whether it was too late to start something new. She simply looked at the woman in the mirror and smiled. She was proud of the person she had become, the woman who had dared to step outside of her comfort zone, who had faced her fears head-on, and who had committed to living a life filled with purpose and self-belief. Sarah knew there would still be challenges ahead. Life had a way of throwing curveballs, and she wasn't immune to the ups and downs of the journey. But she was ready. She was no longer waiting for permission or for the perfect moment. She was creating her own path, one step at a time. The next day, she enrolled in a health coaching certification program. It was an exciting step, one that felt just as thrilling as booking her trip to Italy or signing up for her art class. It was the next chapter, and Sarah was ready to embrace it with the same enthusiasm and determination that had brought her this far. As she clicked the "Enroll" button, she couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. She had come so far, and she was just getting started. There was so much more to discover, so much more to achieve. And the best part? She knew she was capable of it all. After enrolling in the health coaching certification program, Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. The future, once a blurry and intimidating concept, suddenly seemed like an open road filled with potential. She was walking into a new chapter of her life, one that felt uncertain, yet full of possibility. But that excitement was quickly met with the familiar feeling of doubt. The fear of not being good enough crept back into her thoughts. Was she truly ready to help others with their health journeys? Was this just another pipe dream, another idea that would fade away once the initial excitement wore off? Sarah shook her head as she sat at her desk, staring at the materials for the certification program. There was no turning back now. She had made a commitment, not just to the program, but to herself. And this time, she wasn't going to let fear dictate her actions. She had already overcome so much to get to this point. She had reinvented her life, tackled the doubts that held her back, and pushed forward with courage. This new venture would be no different. The first few weeks of the program were intense. There were countless readings, assignments, and quizzes, and Sarah quickly found herself immersed in the world of health coaching. She was learning everything from nutrition and exercise science to mindset strategies and behavior change techniques. It was fascinating, yet overwhelming at times. She had moments when she questioned whether she was capable of learning all this new information. But instead of succumbing to her self-doubt, Sarah leaned into it. She reminded herself that she had been through this before, feeling overwhelmed and uncertain, yet choosing to push through. This time, it was different because she had already built a foundation of self-belief. The fear and doubt were still there, but they no longer had the power to stop her. She found herself excited after every class, eager to apply what she was learning to her own life and to help others. There was a particular lesson on the power of habits that resonated deeply with her. Sarah had struggled for years to break free from unhealthy patterns, whether it was the late-night snacks that left her feeling sluggish or the habit of neglecting her physical health when life got too busy. But now, she was armed with new knowledge. She understood that the key to lasting change wasn't about being perfect, it was about making small, consistent changes over time. One evening, after finishing a module on stress management, Sarah sat down at her desk and began to write. She had always enjoyed writing, but now it felt like a tool she could use to communicate her newfound passion for health and wellness. She started drafting blog posts that combined the lessons she was learning in the program with her personal experiences. It was a way for her to process everything she was learning, but it also felt like a way to reach others, people who might be struggling with the same challenges she had faced. Her blog post titled, "Breaking Free from Stress, Simple Strategies to Take Back Control," quickly gained traction. She received messages from readers who thanked her for the practical advice, who shared their own experiences with stress, and who expressed gratitude for the honesty in her writing. Sarah felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't experienced in a long time. She wasn't just helping herself anymore, she was making a difference in the lives of others. One night, as Sarah sat at the kitchen table, reviewing her next blog post, she received a call from her daughter, Emily. Emily had recently moved to another city for college, and while they talked regularly, Sarah hadn't heard from her this much in the past few weeks. "Mom, I've been meaning to tell you something," Emily began, her voice sounding a little more serious than usual. "Of course, what's going on?" Sarah asked, a sense of concern creeping into her voice. "Well, I just wanted to say that I'm really proud of you. I've been watching everything you've been doing, taking piano lessons, writing your blog, and now the health coaching program. It's amazing how much you've changed. You've always been there for me, but now I'm seeing how you're taking care of yourself, too. I think it's really inspiring." Sarah's heart warmed at her daughter's words. She had always tried to set a good example for Emily, but hearing her daughter acknowledge the transformation Sarah had undergone was an unexpected gift. "Thank you, sweetie. That means more to me than you know," Sarah replied, her voice catching with emotion. "You've been such an important part of this. You've always believed in me, even when I didn't." The conversation with Emily was a turning point for Sarah. It made her realize that she wasn't just changing her own life, she was setting an example for her children, her friends, and even strangers who had found her blog. She was showing them that it was never too late to make a change, that it was possible to reinvent yourself, to start fresh, and to pursue your dreams with courage. The following week, Sarah received an email from the health coaching program, announcing a live webinar with one of the most respected coaches in the industry. The webinar was a chance for students to ask questions, gain insight, and connect with other like-minded individuals. It was an opportunity Sarah didn't want to miss. That evening, as she sat in front of her laptop, waiting for the webinar to begin, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the chance to hear from someone who had already achieved success in the field she was just beginning to explore. The anticipation was palpable. When the webinar started, Sarah was captivated by the speaker's energy and passion. The coach spoke about the importance of mindset, of overcoming limiting beliefs, and of taking consistent action. As she listened, Sarah felt inspired all over again. She realized that health coaching wasn't just about teaching others how to eat healthy or exercise, it was about helping them break through their barriers, both physical and mental. By the end of the webinar, Sarah had a notebook full of ideas, questions, and inspiration. She knew she was on the right path, but she also knew that the road ahead would be full of challenges. There would be days when she doubted herself, when fear crept in, and when it felt easier to give up. But she also knew that she was capable of handling it, because she had already faced her greatest fears, and come out the other side stronger. That night, as she lay in bed, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She had faced countless obstacles, fear, doubt, uncertainty, but she had chosen to keep going. She had chosen to step into the unknown, to embrace the uncertainty, and to believe in herself. And as she drifted off to sleep, she smiled, knowing that the road ahead, though uncertain, was filled with endless possibilities. The next few months were a whirlwind for Sarah. Between her health coaching program, her blog, and the growing number of people reaching out to her for advice, she was busier than she had ever been. But the energy she once spent doubting herself was now being channeled into excitement and anticipation. She had discovered a new rhythm in her life, a balance between the things that mattered most and the things that excited her. However, there was a small voice deep inside her that still had its doubts. She had been making so much progress, but that voice sometimes whispered that maybe she was still not enough. Maybe this whole journey was just a phase, a fleeting burst of energy that would eventually fade away, just like so many of her past attempts. One crisp autumn morning, Sarah received an unexpected call. It was from a local wellness center that had been following her blog for a while. They wanted to schedule a meeting with her to discuss the possibility of her becoming a health coach there, working one-on-one with clients. The offer was exciting, but the pressure was undeniable. Sarah hadn't anticipated such a big opportunity so soon. After hanging up, Sarah sat down at her kitchen table, trying to process what had just happened. The idea of working at a wellness center was exactly what she had hoped for when she first began her health coaching journey. It was the next logical step, but that didn't make it any less intimidating. She was used to writing blog posts and offering advice online, but working with clients face-to-face, diving into their personal struggles and goals, was a different ballgame. Her mind swirled with conflicting emotions. She had always wanted to help people on a deeper level, to be that guiding voice they could trust when they needed it most. But there was still that lingering fear: what if she wasn't ready? What if she couldn't live up to the expectations of her clients? Am I really prepared for this? She muttered to herself. But then she remembered the countless hours she had spent studying, the lessons she had learned about habits, mindset, and nutrition, and how she had already helped people through her blog. She remembered how her daughter, Emily, had acknowledged her transformation, and how much Sarah had grown since beginning this journey. Maybe it wasn't about being perfectly prepared. Maybe it was about taking the first step, trusting that she would learn and grow along the way. The next day, she called the wellness center back to schedule a meeting. When the day of the meeting arrived, Sarah felt both nervous and excited. As she walked into the center, she was immediately struck by the peaceful atmosphere, the soft lighting, the faint scent of lavender, and the calming music that played in the background. It felt like the perfect environment for the kind of work she wanted to do. The woman at the front desk greeted her warmly, and soon, Sarah was ushered into a meeting room where two women were waiting for her. "Sarah, it's so great to meet you in person," one of the women said. She introduced herself as Lisa, the wellness center's director. The other woman, Jenna, was a health coach who had been with the center for a few years and was looking forward to working alongside Sarah. As the conversation began, Sarah could feel her nerves slowly melting away. Lisa and Jenna were kind, approachable, and passionate about what they did. They explained that the wellness center had recently expanded its health coaching department and was looking for someone with a fresh perspective, someone who could connect with clients on a personal level and help them navigate the challenges they faced in achieving their health goals. "We've been following your blog, Sarah," Lisa said. "You've built a great community of people who trust your advice. We think you would be a great fit here." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. The validation she had been seeking, the confirmation that her work mattered, was right in front of her. Over the next hour, they discussed the specifics of the role. Sarah would work with clients on a one-on-one basis, helping them with everything from nutrition and exercise to stress management and emotional well-being. She would also have the opportunity to host workshops and group sessions, where she could share her knowledge with a larger audience. At first, Sarah felt overwhelmed by the scope of the job. It was a big commitment, and she knew there would be challenges. But as Lisa and Jenna spoke more about the center's philosophy, Sarah began to feel more confident. This was exactly the kind of environment where she could thrive. The work aligned perfectly with her values and passion for helping others. By the end of the meeting, they offered Sarah the position. As Sarah left the wellness center that afternoon, her head was buzzing with excitement and nerves. She was about to take a leap into something new and uncertain. But this time, it wasn't fear holding her back, it was a deep sense of anticipation. She knew that this was the next step in her journey, the next opportunity to stretch her capabilities and make a real impact in the lives of others. When Sarah told her family and friends about the offer, they were thrilled for her. Emily, in particular, was proud of how far her mom had come. "You're doing exactly what you've always wanted, Mom. I know you'll make a huge difference in people's lives," Emily said, her voice full of admiration. The encouragement from her loved ones made all the difference. Sarah realized that this wasn't just a personal achievement, it was a shared victory. Her growth had inspired those around her, and now she was ready to take the next big step. Over the next few weeks, Sarah prepared for her new role at the wellness center. She spent hours refining her coaching approach, practicing her communication skills, and learning about the specific needs of her future clients. There were moments of doubt, but she remembered what she had learned through her journey. Growth came from embracing discomfort, from stepping into the unknown with courage. Finally, the day arrived for Sarah's first day at the wellness center. She walked through the doors with a sense of purpose, ready to take on the challenges ahead. She was no longer the person she had been when she started her journey. She had evolved, grown, and embraced the uncertainty that had once held her back. As Sarah greeted her first client, a woman named Karen who had been struggling with stress and weight gain, she felt a sense of calm. This was what she was meant to do, this was where she could make the most impact. And with each conversation, each session, and each small victory, Sarah knew she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Sarah's first few weeks at the wellness center were filled with learning experiences. She had anticipated challenges, but she didn't realize just how difficult it would be to help people change deep-rooted habits. While her initial excitement had been high, the reality of guiding people through transformative journeys was a different story. Each client brought their own set of obstacles, making her role more complicated than she had imagined. One of Sarah's first clients, Karen, had been struggling with weight gain and stress for years. Sarah had worked closely with her on stress management techniques and was helping her find a balanced approach to food and exercise. However, Karen's deep-rooted fears about failure often kept her from fully committing to the plan. She would fall off track frequently and struggle to pick herself up again. After one particularly difficult session where Karen admitted to feeling overwhelmed and hopeless, Sarah felt a wave of self-doubt. Was she really making a difference? Was Karen any better off after all their sessions? The worry that maybe she wasn't prepared enough gnawed at her. She knew how badly she wanted to help, but the emotional weight of it all was heavier than she expected. Later that evening, Sarah sat at home, staring at the ceiling as thoughts of Karen's frustration lingered in her mind. She reached for her phone and opened her blog. Reading through her past posts, she noticed a shift in her writing. Her words had been filled with optimism and practical advice, but now they seemed to lack the kind of depth she had hoped to bring into her health coaching. The next morning, Sarah woke up determined to take a different approach. She knew that helping people wasn't going to be a straight line. There would be setbacks. But what mattered most was that she stayed consistent and didn't let her own doubts influence the way she guided others. She started by reviewing her notes on Karen's journey, where she had succeeded and where she had struggled. Sarah realized that Karen wasn't just battling with food or exercise, she was also grappling with a mindset that had kept her stuck for so long. Stress was not only a physical issue for Karen, but a mental barrier she hadn't been able to break down. Instead of focusing so much on the physical aspects, Sarah decided to integrate more mindset work into their sessions. She researched new techniques for reframing negative thoughts, practiced deep breathing exercises, and even included journaling prompts to help Karen uncover her true motivations for wanting to make changes in her life. When Karen returned for their next session, Sarah greeted her with a new perspective. They talked less about the scale and more about Karen's emotional triggers. Sarah shared some of her own personal struggles with stress and how practicing mindfulness had helped her deal with similar issues. She could tell that Karen appreciated the vulnerability Sarah showed, and in turn, Karen seemed more open and less defensive. Over the next few weeks, Karen made small strides. There were still plenty of setbacks, but Sarah noticed that Karen was more forgiving of herself when she stumbled. Instead of punishing herself for falling off track, Karen had started to accept that progress wasn't linear. Sarah also continued to refine her approach with other clients. She had learned that there wasn't a one-size-fits-all solution to health coaching. Each individual had their own unique challenges, fears, and goals. Some clients responded better to structured plans, while others needed more flexibility and emotional support. Understanding these differences and adapting her coaching style was key. One of Sarah's other clients, Tom, was a retired man in his mid-60s who had recently been diagnosed with high blood pressure. Tom had always been active, but after his retirement, he struggled with finding the motivation to maintain a healthy routine. His biggest challenge wasn't physical, it was mental. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was too old to change. During one of their sessions, Tom admitted to Sarah, "I'm too far gone. At my age, I'm just stuck with what I have. It's not like I can turn back the clock, right?" Sarah could sense the frustration in his voice. But rather than let him sink into defeat, she responded with empathy, "You're right, Tom. You can't go back in time. But you're still here, and you can still choose how you want to live from this point forward. It's not about turning back the clock, it's about giving yourself the chance to create a healthier future, even at this stage in life." Tom paused, considering her words. "I've never thought about it that way," he said, his voice softening. Over the next few months, Sarah worked with Tom to develop a personalized plan that didn't just focus on exercise but also included stress-relieving activities, like walking and gentle yoga, which Tom found surprisingly enjoyable. Slowly, he regained his confidence and started feeling like his age was no longer a barrier to improving his health. Tom's success was a reminder to Sarah that age was not an obstacle to change, it was just a different kind of challenge. She had to meet her clients where they were, understanding their unique life experiences and fears, and then help them build the mindset and habits to move forward. While Sarah's journey at the wellness center wasn't without its hurdles, it was also incredibly rewarding. She began to recognize that her ability to help others was growing not just because of her technical knowledge, but because of her emotional intelligence. She understood that change wasn't just about the practical steps, it was about helping people overcome the internal barriers that had held them back for so long. One day, after a particularly challenging but fulfilling week of client sessions, Sarah sat down in her office to reflect. As she looked at the notes on her desk, she realized just how far she had come. She was no longer a woman plagued by self-doubt or uncertainty. She had grown into a confident coach, one who understood the power of small steps, self-compassion, and the belief that anyone, at any age, could create lasting change. She leaned back in her chair, taking a deep breath, feeling proud of the work she had done and the work still ahead. The journey wasn't easy, but it was worth every moment. She was exactly where she was supposed to be. As Sarah's work at the wellness center continued to grow, she began to notice something profound. It wasn't just the one-on-one coaching sessions that were making a difference in her clients' lives, it was the ripple effect, the way their progress inspired others around them to take action. It was like a small spark igniting a much larger flame. One person's commitment to change had the potential to inspire entire families, friends, and communities. Her first real glimpse into this came with Karen. Over the months of working together, Karen had made noticeable progress. Not just in terms of weight loss or physical health, but in her mindset. She had become more open, more accepting of herself, and more confident in her ability to make positive changes. One afternoon, Karen walked into Sarah's office with a smile that stretched from ear to ear. "I have something to tell you," she said, her eyes sparkling. "I've been talking to my daughter a lot about what I've been doing with you. She's been struggling with her own health, and I think she finally gets it. She's ready to make some changes, too." Sarah beamed. "That's wonderful, Karen. You've made such progress. I'm glad to hear your daughter is on board." "I think it's more than that," Karen continued. "I've started making healthier meals at home, and my husband has been joining me. He's been cooking more with me, and we've been walking together every night after dinner. It's like a whole new way of living for us. It feels good." The joy in Karen's voice was contagious. Sarah couldn't help but feel proud. It was incredible to see how her work with Karen had influenced her entire family. Karen had gone from someone overwhelmed by stress and uncertainty to a woman who was not only improving her own health but empowering those around her to do the same. "Do you think you'd want to do a family workshop sometime?" Karen asked, an idea lighting up in her eyes. "I think a lot of families could benefit from learning what we've been doing." It was a suggestion Sarah had never really considered, but as she thought about it, she realized how much potential there was in helping entire families. Health wasn't just an individual pursuit, it was something that could bring people together, helping them support one another in ways that lasted a lifetime. Let's set something up, Sarah said. I'd love to share what we've learned. That evening, Sarah sat down at her desk, reflecting on the powerful change that had unfolded. It wasn't just her own growth that had been monumental, it was the way her work had helped others create change. She had helped Karen see herself in a new light, and now Karen was passing that same vision onto her loved ones. Sarah began to draft the outline for her first-ever family-focused wellness workshop. She would include practical strategies for meal planning, stress reduction, and how families could encourage each other through their health journeys. She knew that the most successful programs weren't just about individual effort, they had to involve collaboration, mutual support, and understanding. As Sarah planned the workshop, she also started to reflect on her own family. Emily, her daughter, had been Sarah's biggest supporter from the very beginning. Watching Emily take small steps toward her own healthy lifestyle gave Sarah a deep sense of pride. But now, more than ever, she realized how important it was to help families as a unit, rather than as individuals. Sarah's next client, Tom, also became an unexpected example of how wellness could extend beyond just one person. Tom had come a long way from his initial mindset of, "I'm too old for this." He had incorporated small, manageable changes into his routine, and his blood pressure had significantly improved. But more than just the physical changes, Sarah had seen his mental transformation. He had become a more engaged, motivated person, embracing each day with a newfound sense of purpose. One morning, Tom called Sarah with some exciting news. "I'm going to ask my son to join me for a walk this weekend," Tom said, his voice full of enthusiasm. "It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, but I never had the energy to follow through. Now, I'm excited to get him involved." Tom's excitement was palpable, and it made Sarah's heart swell. She had never imagined that her work would not only impact her clients directly but also extend into their relationships, sparking change in the lives of their loved ones as well. Tom's decision to invite his son to join him wasn't just about walking, it was about building a relationship, fostering communication, and setting a new example for health and well-being within his family. The success of Karen and Tom gave Sarah the clarity she needed to shape her future as a coach. Health wasn't just about fitness, it was about connection to oneself and to others. She began to see herself not just as a coach who helped individuals make changes but as someone who could help families build a healthier, more supportive environment together. As Sarah began to develop more family-oriented programs, she also realized that her clients were looking for something more than just practical advice. They needed support, they needed guidance, and, most importantly, they needed to know that they weren't alone. This was something she could offer, not just through her one-on-one sessions, but through workshops, community groups, and online resources that encouraged collaboration. By the time Sarah hosted her first family wellness workshop, word had spread throughout the center. The turnout exceeded her expectations, with families from all walks of life coming together to learn how to improve their health in a way that was fun, interactive, and supportive. The workshop included practical advice on meal planning, exercise routines for all ages, and ways to reduce stress as a family. It was a huge success, and the feedback from attendees was overwhelmingly positive. Families reported feeling more connected, more motivated, and more empowered to support one another in their health journeys. They left the workshop not just with a set of tools, but with a sense of community and the knowledge that they were not in this alone. As Sarah wrapped up the workshop, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. It wasn't just about the individual success stories, it was about creating a movement. A movement that encouraged people to prioritize their health and well-being, not just for themselves, but for their loved ones, too. In the weeks that followed, Sarah's reputation as a health coach continued to grow, and she was invited to share her experiences at local events and conferences. She became known for her ability to bring families together through wellness, and her passion for creating lasting change spread like wildfire. But for Sarah, the true reward was always in the small victories, the moments when clients like Karen and Tom began to see their own potential, and the ripple effect continued to touch the lives of those around them. It was a reminder that no change was too small to matter, and that every step forward, no matter how big or small, had the power to create something much larger than herself. The success of her first family wellness workshop had ignited something within Sarah. She had always known that connection was important, but seeing the way people came together during the workshop reinforced the idea that health wasn't just about individual goals, it was about the community surrounding you. A supportive environment could amplify the impact of even the smallest changes. And for Sarah, that realization felt like a new chapter in her journey. As Sarah reflected on the workshop's success, she realized that there was a gap she hadn't yet filled. Although she had been able to help individuals and families in her sessions, there wasn't an easy, ongoing way for people to stay connected outside of their coaching sessions. She began to think about how she could create a lasting, supportive community that would keep people engaged and motivated. Her mind raced with ideas: online groups, meetups, accountability partnerships. What could she offer that would make people feel like they were part of something bigger than themselves? One afternoon, while working on a new blog post about the importance of having a support network in health journeys, Sarah received a call from Karen. "Hi, Sarah. I've been thinking about what you said in our last session, and I have an idea I want to share with you," Karen said, her voice brimming with excitement. "I'm all ears," Sarah replied. "Well, you know how I've been telling you about my husband and daughter starting to get more involved in our health journey? I was thinking it might be helpful to create a space where families can come together, share their stories, and support each other. What if we created an online community for families trying to get healthier?" Sarah's heart skipped a beat. It was exactly what she had been thinking about. "That's an incredible idea, Karen," Sarah said, her excitement building. "A space where families can support each other, ask questions, share challenges, and celebrate wins, it could be such a game changer." Karen was thrilled by Sarah's response. "I think it would make a huge difference. And I'd love to be part of it, too. My daughter and I could help with organizing, and maybe we could even do some fun activities or challenges together." Sarah loved the sound of it. She knew Karen was already such a strong advocate for healthy living, and her involvement would bring even more energy and passion to the project. But Sarah also knew that in order for this community to thrive, she'd need to offer more than just a place for people to connect. She needed to create a space where people could share knowledge, feel supported, and, most importantly, hold each other accountable. Sarah got to work right away. She started by building an online platform where families could sign up to join the community. It would feature a mix of discussion boards, fitness challenges, cooking tips, stress management strategies, and even live group sessions where members could ask questions and learn from each other. She envisioned weekly check-ins, where families could share their progress and set new goals. It would be a safe space where people could be open about their struggles and celebrate their successes without judgment. In addition, Sarah planned to bring in guest experts, nutritionists, fitness coaches, and mental health professionals, who could provide valuable insights and answer questions during live events. She also knew that she would have to be active in the group herself, offering her own experiences and advice to keep the energy high. As the weeks passed, Sarah watched as the community began to take shape. Families from all walks of life started joining, and the energy was palpable. Members shared their victories, like successfully completing a 30-day fitness challenge or cooking their first healthy meal together. They also shared their struggles, times when they felt discouraged or when they were tempted to give up. But what stood out to Sarah the most was the way members supported each other. It wasn't just about her giving advice, it was about the community lifting one another up. One evening, Sarah logged into the community platform and saw a post from Tom. "I just finished my walk with my son, and I can't tell you how much it meant to me," he wrote. "We've had some tough conversations lately, and getting outside together like this reminded me that there's always room to grow, no matter how old I am. Thanks for helping me realize that. I'm looking forward to next week's challenge." Sarah smiled as she read his post. She had helped Tom see that it wasn't just about physical health, it was about reconnecting with his family, building stronger relationships, and learning how to face challenges together. That was the true power of health coaching, it wasn't about perfection, it was about the process of growth and connection. As more families shared their own stories, Sarah began to see a pattern emerge. The ones who succeeded the most weren't necessarily the ones who followed the strictest plans, but those who embraced the community. They leaned on each other, celebrated each other's successes, and, most importantly, learned to forgive each other during setbacks. The success of the community also started to extend beyond the virtual world. Families who had connected online began meeting up in person to walk together, cook meals together, and support each other's health goals. Some of them formed regular walking groups, others started weekend cooking clubs, and a few even planned family health retreats. Sarah could see that the community was no longer just about her. It had evolved into something much larger, something that was creating lasting change in the lives of families. It wasn't just about providing information, it was about fostering a culture of support, connection, and mutual growth. It was about creating a movement that helped people realize that they didn't have to go it alone. As the community grew, Sarah found herself busier than ever, but she was also more fulfilled. She had found her true calling, not just as a wellness coach, but as a connector, someone who could bring people together and help them thrive. She knew that this was just the beginning of something much bigger, something that could spread to communities all over the country, and maybe even the world. But for now, Sarah focused on the community she had built. She continued to engage with her members, share her insights, and celebrate their wins. And in every success story she heard, whether it was a family finally cooking dinner together or a client taking their first walk in years, she was reminded of the power of connection. Because health wasn't just about what you ate or how much you exercised, it was about the people who walked alongside you every step of the way. As Sarah's wellness community continued to grow, she began to see more and more people not just focusing on their physical health, but also diving into their mental and emotional well-being. It became clear to her that, in order to truly live a balanced and fulfilling life, it wasn't enough to simply focus on what we ate or how much we exercised. Our minds and emotions played just as crucial a role in our overall health. It all started with one conversation. During a community check-in session, one of the members, Lisa, had mentioned something that stuck with Sarah. "I've been doing great with my physical health, but I can't seem to shake the constant anxiety I feel. I'm always stressed, and it's holding me back from really enjoying the progress I've made. I feel like my mind is constantly racing, and it's hard to relax." Sarah knew that many people in the community likely felt the same way. She had seen it herself, families making strides in their physical health but still battling internal struggles. Stress, anxiety, and negative thinking were taking a toll on their progress. That evening, Sarah sat in her office, thinking about how she could help Lisa and others like her. She had always focused on physical health, fitness routines, healthy eating, and lifestyle changes, but what if there was another piece of the puzzle? What if mindfulness could be the missing link? Mindfulness, the practice of being present in the moment and fully aware of one's thoughts and feelings, had been gaining popularity in the wellness world. Sarah had read about it before, but she had never explored it deeply in her coaching practice. Now, she was determined to learn more and bring it into her work. Sarah spent the next few weeks studying mindfulness, reading books, watching videos, and even taking an online course. She learned about the importance of mindfulness in reducing stress, enhancing emotional well-being, and improving overall health. It became clear that mindfulness wasn't just about sitting in silence for a few minutes each day, it was about cultivating awareness in every aspect of life, whether that was in your relationships, your eating habits, or your physical activity. Sarah felt inspired. She was eager to integrate mindfulness into her community's wellness journey. But how could she introduce this to her clients in a way that felt natural and accessible? The answer came to her one afternoon during a walk in the park with Emily. As they strolled through the quiet paths lined with trees, Sarah found herself feeling incredibly present, soaking in the sights, sounds, and smells of the nature around her. For the first time in a long while, her mind wasn't racing with thoughts of work, deadlines, or what was next on her to-do list. She was simply there, in that moment. Emily, Sarah said, stopping for a moment, I think I've found something important that I need to bring into my work. Mindfulness. It's about being truly present, just like we are right now. Not worrying about the future or regretting the past, but just being here. Emily smiled. I think that's exactly what you've been teaching us, Mom. You've always told us to take things one step at a time, and I guess mindfulness is about really living in each of those steps. Sarah nodded. Yes. I think mindfulness can help people stay grounded and really appreciate how far they've come, instead of always focusing on what's next or what they haven't achieved yet. It's not just about reaching a destination, it's about the journey and being present for it. With this newfound clarity, Sarah knew it was time to incorporate mindfulness into her wellness programs. She decided to start by creating simple, accessible mindfulness practices that her clients could easily incorporate into their busy lives. The first step was to teach her community about the basics of mindfulness, breathing exercises, observing thoughts without judgment, and practicing gratitude. She knew that starting small would be key. After all, mindfulness didn't require hours of practice each day, it was about integrating small moments of awareness throughout the day. The next weekend, Sarah hosted a live session for her community, titled Mindfulness for Everyday Life. She explained the concept of mindfulness and led them through a short, guided breathing exercise. She encouraged participants to take a few minutes each day to simply focus on their breath, noticing the rise and fall of their chest, and to do so with kindness and without judgment. The response from the community was overwhelmingly positive. Many people, like Lisa, felt a sense of calm they hadn't experienced before. Others shared how it helped them manage stress during challenging moments, especially when it came to juggling family, work, and personal health. Lisa reached out to Sarah after the session, expressing how much the mindfulness exercise had impacted her. I feel like I've been carrying this weight around in my mind, and it's been affecting everything, my relationships, my physical health, even my work. After just a few minutes of breathing and being mindful, I felt lighter. I'm going to try this every day. Her words were music to Sarah's ears. Lisa had experienced, firsthand, the power of being present. And it wasn't just about reducing anxiety or stress, it was about improving the way we related to ourselves and to others. Inspired by the success of the mindfulness session, Sarah decided to integrate it into her family workshops. She began to teach families how they could practice mindfulness together, whether it was through a 5-minute gratitude exercise after dinner or practicing mindful breathing during a walk. By involving the entire family, she knew it would make the practice even more powerful. One evening, during a family session, Sarah asked the group to take a few moments to practice mindful listening. She encouraged them to listen to each other without interrupting, without judgment, and with full attention. The results were profound. Families reported feeling more connected and understood. Parents learned to listen to their children without distractions, and children found that they felt heard in a way they hadn't before. Sarah could see that mindfulness wasn't just a tool for individual well-being, it was a powerful way to strengthen family bonds and create deeper, more meaningful connections. Over time, Sarah continued to incorporate mindfulness into her coaching. She started leading more advanced practices, such as mindful eating, where clients were encouraged to slow down and truly savor each bite. She also introduced mindful movement, like yoga and Tai Chi, as ways to connect the body and mind. But one thing Sarah never forgot was the simple power of a breath. Sometimes, it wasn't about complicated practices or long meditation sessions. Sometimes, it was about simply pausing and taking a deep breath, something Sarah had learned to do herself in moments of overwhelm. Through mindfulness, Sarah had found a new path, a path that not only helped her clients improve their physical health, but also brought them peace, clarity, and a deeper sense of joy. And in the process, she had discovered the power of being present, in every moment, every step of the way. Sarah had come a long way since the first time she had stepped into the world of health and wellness coaching. She had built a community, guided countless families toward better health, and learned the incredible impact of mindfulness. But as the months went by, she began to notice something else. something even more powerful than the physical transformations she had witnessed in her clients. It was the ripple effect. Sarah had always believed that one person could make a difference. And she had seen it firsthand. Every time a family or individual embraced their wellness journey, their success didn't just stay with them, it spread to the people around them. Friends, co-workers, neighbors. The enthusiasm, the motivation, the energy, it all overflowed, creating a ripple effect of change that reached far beyond what Sarah had imagined. One evening, as Sarah sat in her office going through her emails, she came across a message that made her stop in her tracks. It was from Jessica, a mother who had attended Sarah's first family wellness workshop. "Hi, Sarah," the email began. "I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for my family. Since we started working with you, my husband and I have been so much more mindful about our health. But the most amazing thing is that our kids have started getting involved too. My son, who's been struggling with his weight for a while, has now started taking part in family walks. He actually asked if we could make them a regular thing. It's been such a positive change for all of us. But what's even more incredible is that it's starting to inspire my coworkers. They've been asking me about our changes and how they can get started. I'm not just seeing the benefits in my own family, I'm seeing it spread to others too. It feels like we're creating a movement. Thank you." Reading Jessica's words, Sarah felt a rush of emotion. What she had started had become more than just a series of workshops and coaching sessions. It had become a movement toward healthier, happier lives. It was no longer just about individual success stories, it was about communities supporting each other and inspiring those around them to take charge of their health. As Sarah reflected on Jessica's email, she realized that this ripple effect had been happening in so many other families as well. She had seen it in Karen's family, who had not only transformed their own health but had started sharing their journey with their extended family members. She had seen it in Tom's group of friends, who had begun walking together every Saturday morning, all inspired by the positive changes they saw in Tom. And she had witnessed it in her own family, where Emily had taken a lead role in spreading wellness ideas to her friends at school. The ripple effect wasn't just about people adopting new habits, it was about a shift in mindset. People were starting to see that health wasn't a destination, it was a lifelong journey, one that could be embraced by individuals, families, and entire communities. And Sarah knew that the more she could nurture this mindset, the more profound the impact would be. Sarah was determined to take the ripple effect to the next level. She started thinking about how she could reach even more people, expand her mission, and make an even bigger impact. The idea of creating a larger, more organized movement began to take shape in her mind. She had always focused on individual health coaching, but what if she could bring together multiple coaches, health experts, and wellness advocates to create something even more powerful? With this in mind, Sarah began planning an event that would bring together the best and brightest in the wellness world. She envisioned a conference that would not only offer the latest health information but also inspire attendees to become ambassadors for wellness in their own communities. The conference would be a place for learning, growth, and connection, a place where people could share their own stories and gain new tools to spread the message of health. She started reaching out to her network, inviting nutritionists, fitness experts, psychologists, and even mindfulness teachers to be part of the event. She knew that by bringing together a diverse group of people, the event would have a powerful, holistic approach to health, one that touched on every aspect of well-being, physical, emotional, and mental. The response was overwhelming. Experts from across the country eagerly agreed to participate, and soon Sarah found herself in the midst of planning the biggest event of her career. She called it the Wellness Ripple, a movement for change. The conference would feature keynote speakers, breakout sessions, and hands-on workshops, all designed to inspire attendees to embrace health in every area of their lives. Sarah's goal was to create an experience that was both educational and motivational, leaving attendees feeling empowered to go back to their communities and spread the message of wellness far and wide. As the conference date approached, Sarah's excitement grew. She couldn't wait to see the energy that would fill the room when hundreds of like-minded individuals came together to create a wave of positive change. But there was one thing that Sarah couldn't help but wonder: how would she personally handle such a massive event? She had been the one organizing it, but now it was time for her to step into the spotlight in a way she never had before. On the morning of the conference, Sarah stood backstage, looking out at the crowd. The energy in the room was electric. People from all walks of life had gathered to be part of this movement, and the sense of anticipation was palpable. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest. This was it. This was the moment she had been working toward. The first speaker, a renowned nutritionist, took the stage, and the audience was captivated from the very beginning. Throughout the day, speakers shared their knowledge, participants joined interactive workshops, and attendees bonded over shared experiences. It was everything Sarah had hoped for, and more. The conference wasn't just a one-day event, it was the beginning of something much bigger. At the end of the day, Sarah took the stage to close the event. As she looked out at the sea of faces in front of her, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had built a community that had created a ripple effect, and now that ripple was growing, spreading to new cities, new families, and new people eager to embrace wellness. "We're just getting started," Sarah said, her voice filled with emotion. "This is not just about us. It's about the lives we touch, the communities we build, and the change we create together. Each of you here today is a part of this movement, and I'm so grateful to have you with me. Together, we are creating a ripple of wellness that will spread across the world. Thank you for being a part of it." As Sarah left the stage, she knew that this was only the beginning. The ripple effect had become a tidal wave, and she was more determined than ever to keep the movement alive, reaching more people, touching more lives, and making the world a healthier, happier place. The months following the Wellness Ripple conference were a blur of growth, change, and connection. Sarah had successfully ignited a movement that was rapidly expanding, but as she stood at the center of it all, she knew that the true measure of success wouldn't be the number of attendees at events or the number of clients she had. It would be the lasting impact she left on her community, the seeds of wellness that had been planted in the hearts of so many, and those seeds would continue to grow for years to come. Sarah sat in her office one evening, a quiet moment of reflection after a long day of coaching, planning, and working with her team. She had come so far from the days when she was just beginning her wellness journey, struggling to balance work, family, and her passion for health. She had faced challenges, overcome self-doubt, and fought through moments of uncertainty. And now, the ripple effect had reached more lives than she had ever imagined. It wasn't just about her anymore, it was about the countless people she had helped, and those they had helped in turn. Every email, every conversation, every success story, it all added up to something bigger than herself. And that, to Sarah, was the ultimate success. But there was one final milestone that Sarah had been quietly working toward, something she had kept in the back of her mind for a while. A new book. Her first book, The Ripple Effect of Wellness, A Guide to Transforming Your Life and Family, had been a huge success, and now Sarah was ready to write the next chapter in her own life's journey. She wanted to put all her learnings into a new book, one that captured the essence of everything she had taught her community, that wellness was not just a goal, but a lifestyle, a path that anyone, no matter their age or background, could walk. She began the writing process during the late summer months, when the evenings were still warm and the days stretched long. It wasn't easy, but it was deeply fulfilling. She poured her heart into every page, crafting stories from her own life and those of her clients. She wrote about the importance of resilience, mindfulness, and the power of a supportive community. But most of all, she wrote about the journey, the ups, the downs, and everything in between. She knew that her readers, like her clients, needed to understand that the road to wellness wasn't always smooth, but it was always worth it. As the months passed and Sarah's new book took shape, her wellness community continued to thrive. New families signed up for her coaching, her workshops reached even more cities, and her message of holistic health, body, mind, and spirit, began to permeate different corners of the world. Sarah knew that her true legacy wasn't about the business she had built. It wasn't about the awards or accolades she had earned. It was about the people she had inspired to take control of their health and to build lives filled with purpose, joy, and connection. It was about the families who had learned to prioritize their well-being and the individuals who had transformed their lives by making simple yet profound changes. It was about the ripple effect that was still spreading, far and wide, across the globe. One day, Sarah found herself sitting with her family on the porch of their home, watching the sunset. Emily sat beside her, and the two of them shared a quiet moment, the warmth of the evening sun enveloping them. Sarah couldn't help but smile as she looked at her daughter. Emily had been a driving force behind many of Sarah's ideas, her unwavering belief in wellness inspiring her to keep going when the journey felt overwhelming. "Mom," Emily said softly, "do you ever think about how far we've come? I mean, remember when we were just talking about starting a wellness program in the living room? And now look at what it's turned into." Sarah smiled, her heart full. "It's hard to believe sometimes, but it's been incredible, hasn't it? And the best part is, we're just getting started. There's still so much more to do." Emily nodded thoughtfully, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "I think about that a lot. How the small things, like what we eat and how we take care of ourselves, really do add up to something bigger. You've shown so many people that." For a moment, Sarah simply sat back, taking in the beauty of the sunset and the moment of quiet reflection. The path ahead was still unfolding, but she knew that she had made a difference. And it wasn't just her work, it was the collective efforts of every person who had embraced the wellness journey alongside her. Together, they had created something powerful and lasting. As Sarah watched Emily, she realized how much her daughter had grown, not just in age, but in understanding. Emily had internalized the values Sarah had worked so hard to instill, the importance of family, health, and a life lived with intention. "Mom," Emily said, breaking the silence again. "What's next for us?" Sarah thought for a moment, considering the future. There were still so many ideas she wanted to explore, new ways to support her community, and so many people she still hoped to reach. But in that moment, she realized that the next steps didn't need to be mapped out perfectly. The journey would unfold, as it always had, one step at a time. And she would continue to walk it with passion, purpose, and an open heart. "We keep going," Sarah said softly, "one step at a time. There's always more to do, but we'll keep moving forward, together." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah felt a profound sense of peace. She had created something far more powerful than she could have imagined. She had built a movement, a community, and a legacy of wellness that would continue to grow, ripple outward, and touch lives for generations to come. And with that, Sarah knew that the journey was far from over. It was only just beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?